You only need to know me. I will be the one.
I always love the reminders in various arcs of Luffy's greatest power, his great power. The chapter begins with Nami, Usopp, and Otama receiving some help from the gifters and making their getaway. Nami says Tama's ability is really amazing, to which Usopp replies, "No kidding. Enemies one moment, friends the next." Oda won't let this idea go. The various reminders, the callbacks to Mihawk's words on Marineford, and I'm sure it has been mentioned by other characters too, Luffy's rare gift. The power to bring friends and, yes, foes to his side, to stretch and spread his conviction outwards to all he encounters, swaying old foes to become new allies. Otama having this gift too in her own way, despite it stemming from a devil fruit, is fitting given her connection with Luffy, I guess, but I wonder if it has a broader purpose. What will become of the Beast Pirates after Wano? Who will they serve or willingly join, given the fact that Kaido oppresses those he wishes to join him? Which kind of links with what Nami says next and something I said in my Luffy and the Power to Conquer All Things video, that Zeus won't be a servant. Instead, he can be Nami's partner. A fellow Straw Hat, you could say. Nakama. Luffy doesn't want to rule anything or anyone. If you want to join him, go ahead. He won't force you. And it is this sense of freedom that is so compelling to friends and enemies alike. Either the Straw Hats have a lot in common, or they've learned this particular trait from their captain, from Luffy's example. So I want to go back to a prediction Basil Hawkins had made a while back. Drake and him are seen in deep discussion about the chaos of Onigashima. Hawkins is doing his usual fortune telling and says he is predicting the probability of that man being alive tomorrow. Hawkins then says that certain individual has a 1% chance of survival. It's interesting that Drake would soon be involved in altercation with Queen, Hawkins, and most importantly, Who's Who, as Drake's identity is found out, and an attempt is made to take Drake out for his betrayal. Now we see, in this chapter, Cypherpole, CP0 having found out about, or the truth about Who's Who that maybe the Beast Pirates are not fully aware of, or maybe they are, or maybe some of them know Who's Who's past. But CP0 says the victor of the battle is irrelevant. They are present on Onigashima for one reason alone, as far as we know right now, to confirm his death, the death of a certain man. Again, Oda being vague. Apparently the confidential information Who's Who was sharing last chapter about the Gomu Gomu no Mi maybe is dated. I assume this to mean already known by many, and Who's Who's survival would not harm the world government any further. It's also clear now that the world government, as some had been predicting or speculating, is perfectly fine with letting either side take out whatever targets they might have scheduled for elimination on this island, be it Luffy versus Kaido or Jinbei versus Who's Who now. So Who's Who's explanation as to why he holds a grudge against Luffy is a little confusing based on this translation, beyond the powers of the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Who's Who says Luffy wears the same straw hat that Shanks wore at the time, and his original grudge was against Shanks himself. I'm not sure why Oda would bring this up. I don't know why Oda would bring up the hat other than Luffy resembling Shanks now perhaps, but I did suggest maybe in the last review for chapter 1017 that Shanks himself was considering eating the fruit despite warnings to Luffy that a real pirate needs to be able to swim. That if this fruit belonged to Joy Boy, Shanks maybe was supposed to possibly inherit that will, but fate chose otherwise. Or maybe Shanks was going to sell the fruit to the highest bidder, or as some have reminded me, Shanks was going to give that fruit and his hat to the Pirate King's son, Ace. So maybe it's just me, but Who's Who seems kind of petty, don't you think? I know many of us were holding out for a broader, more significant reason as to why he was worried about the Gomu Gomu no Mi, which I still think could be the case, and I'll be making a video on that next, but perhaps Who's Who doesn't know everything that the world government does. This upcoming panel had me dying of laughter. I don't know what to think about Who's Who anymore. Exactly who are you? Nah, I'm just joking, but props to Jinbei for standing up for himself. Something I've long wondered about is Impel Down. Despite the terrible deeds of the inmates there, I'm sure some of their sentences were deserved, but others not so much. Pirates and other criminals were all seen the same regardless of the severity of their actions, although yes, some of them were located at varying levels depending on the severity of their crimes, but still, all of them were seen as equally evil to a considerable degree. Regardless of your location in Impel Down, regardless of the inhumanity of some punishments depending on the level. You could argue that every level was inhumane by a unique experience. For example, Ace and Jinbei, etc. should not have been treated the same as Doflamingo or those who are now on Blackbeard's crew, even for those prisoners on a certain level such as level 6. There are many there perhaps that did not deserve to be there. It is my view that this harsh sentencing is oppressive, and Luffy partially contributing to the prison breakout by Blackbeard is respectable to a degree, just as it is worthy of condemnation in an alternative sense. Luffy isn't a hero, he simply has his ideals. But Who's Who now brings up how people jailed in Impel Down would pray to someone known as the Sun God for salvation. The Sun God named Nika. Apparently slaves in ancient times believed a legendary warrior would come and save them, and I assume this applies to all slaves and politics aside. Some people view prison as a form of slavery. Again, depends on who you ask, depends on the crime. Certainly some of those in Impel Down again lived lives akin to slaves. It was said the Sun God Nika would bring laughter to their lips and free them from their suffering. Who knows if he really existed? It's curious to me though, the fishmen, who have their own history of slavery under the celestial dragons, possibly refer to this figure as Joy Boy by a different name, which is so common among cultures or religions across the world. And so One Piece is its own religion and Joy Boy a prophet of sorts. And given Luffy's own great ability as described by Mihawk, maybe Joy Boy too had this power to not just free people, but bring friend and foe to his side to do so. Now, those in Impel Down and maybe slaves elsewhere refer to this person as the Sun God Nika. What is the true name of this mythological, historical, or prophetic figure? Aside from Joy Boy, again, what is his real name? Looking at the image here as Who's Who speaks, the depiction of the Sun God Nika looks like Luffy, if only because of his rubbery body, his rubber limbs, the rubber legs and arms that appear to be stretching, waving around with sword and spear in hand. The straw hat is also thought by many to symbolize the sun, or at least the dawn and the rise of a new era. In an SBS, Oda had revealed what animal and flower each worst generation member represented. For Luffy, it was a monkey and a sunflower, something that clearly brings laughter and light to others, symbolically. The Gomu Gomu no Mi that Who's Who failed to protect. You know, I'm wondering who named that fruit exactly. I read that it was revealed Lucky Roo is the first person, named or not, to name a devil fruit. And this is interesting considering Lucky Roo is the one that actually stole the Gomu Gomu no Mi from an enemy ship. What if this fruit originally had another name? A more ancient name? I mean, Lucky Roo might have named his own devil fruit if it's revealed he has one. We still don't know, maybe that's what it's referencing. But I just wanted to put that out there. It's more likely, the fruit's Gomu Gomu no Mi name was not given to it by Lucky Roo, and that the fruit has been known as the Gomu Gomu no Mi for ages. Even Shanks refers to it this way, knowing its abilities long before Luffy ate it. I stumbled upon this, though, while looking up the word Nika in Japanese for the sun god. A hypothetical alternative name for Luffy's devil fruit created by a fan of the series long ago. The Nika Nika no Mi, a paramecia-type devil fruit wherein Nika is the Japanese onomatopoeia for smiling with one's teeth, giving someone a wider smile. And in my video, Luffy's fated reunion with his father dragon in the Will of D, I mention a scene from chapter 1 of the series. Luffy, right after having eaten the fruit, with a wide smile, saying he's even happier now, look. Happiness, joy, almost as if a hint that this fruit has a connection or once belonged to Joy Boy. Or just maybe the person that ate this fruit is destined to bring joy to the world. As Jinbei uses his ultimate technique on Who's Who to close out the chapter, I can't help but think this is all kind of ironic if true, because the very man Who's Who has a grudge against might be the reason for his freedom today. The figure he'd been praying to all along for salvation from Impel Down might be none other than the pirate Straw Hat Luffy. Fate really does have a funny way of working. We will have to wait and see. Don't forget to like the video, comment with your thoughts below, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Also click that notification bell. As always, there is more to come. Until next time, I'll see you all in Valhalla.